agriculture, trade, and economic cooperation between Mongolia and Vietnam. He also emphasized the importance of supporting the tourism industry through policy initiatives and increasing citizen exchanges. Additionally, President Khrushchev announced the co-organization of the Mongolian-Vietnamese Business Forum as a part of the state visit, underlining the significance of policy support for entrepreneurs from both countries to boost mutually beneficial cooperation in trade and investment. The Vietnamese president, in his remarks, praised the official talks as open, sincere, friendly, and welcoming. He noted that the two heads of state engaged in comprehensive discussions covering topics such as bilateral relations, regional and international issues of mutual interest, and arrived at common understandings. The Vietnamese president also revealed that both countries have agreed to work closely to ensure the effective and practical implementation of measures for the celebration of the 70th anniversary of diplomatic relations between both countries, slated for next year. Expressing gratitude, President Vo Van Thuan thanked President Khrushchev for the warm invitation to visit Mongolia in a state visit in 2024, marking the 70th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the two nations. This invitation underlines the commitment to deepening ties and fostering lasting friendship between Mongolia and Vietnam.
The state visit of Mongolian President Khrushchev to the Socialist Republic of Vietnam has been marked by the signing of several cooperation documents on November 2, 2023, in the presence of the heads of state of both countries.
An agreement between the government of Mongolia and the government of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam regarding the exemption from visa requirements for holders of diplomatic, official, and ordinary passports was signed. The Mongolian Minister of Foreign Affairs Patsak Batmukh and Vietnamese Minister of Foreign Affairs Bui Thanh Son put their signatures on this document. This agreement will facilitate travel and strengthen diplomatic ties between the two nations. A memorandum of understanding on information exchange and migration management was signed between the Minister of Justice and Internal Affairs of Mongolia and the Minister of Public Security of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. The signing ceremony featured the Mongolian Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Vietnamese Minister of Public Security General To Lam. Another key memorandum aimed at countering transnational organized crime, particularly dealing with drug trafficking, was signed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Mongolia and the Minister of Public Security of Vietnam. This agreement underscores the commitment of both nations to combat the global issue of drug trafficking. Mongolia and Vietnam also agreed to cooperate in strategic research, aiming to strengthen their knowledge sharing and research capabilities. A memorandum of understanding between the National Security Council of Mongolia and the Minister of Public Security of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam on cooperation in strategic research was signed by the Secretary of the National Security Council Ikhpair Chatamp and Minister General To Lam. To bolster economic ties, a memorandum of understanding was signed between the Minister of Food, Agriculture and Light Industry of Mongolia and the Minister of Industry and Trade of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam on sustainable rice trading. This agreement, signed by Minister Bodorcholon Hoyanga and Minister Nguyen Hon Dien, aims to promote sustainable rice trade between the two countries, contributing to their food security and agricultural cooperation.
Specialist doctors from the Republic of India are coming to Mongolia to conduct examinations and diagnosis. Additionally, the doctors will provide advice to Mongolian doctors and share their information about technology and new treatment experiences utilized in international countries.
Medical professionals from the Republic of India are arriving in Mongolia as part of a contract with the Ministry of Health. Alongside offering expert advice, these doctors will also be conducting patient examinations.
So the purpose why we are here is we are privileged to be a part of journey that we are sort of collaborating with Ministry of Health Mongolia, wherein our purpose is to establish the state-of-the-art hematology and bone marrow transplant departments in this country. In the same endeavors, what we will be doing is we will be imparting training to the doctors here in this country as well as the necessary paramedical staff would be trained during the journey, so that maybe 6 months or 1 year or maybe beyond that, the Department of Hematology and Bone Marrow Transplant can function independently and do high-end treatments the way we are doing back home in our country. And maybe all the patients who require such high-end treatments do not need to travel outside the country for such treatments.
This gastro-related cancers, the main reason that I feel is because of the lifestyle habits that we have in Mongolia, and there's a lot of beef that is being consumed and a lot of meat that is being consumed that contributes to probably this high incidence of gastrointestinal cancers. Regarding liver cancers, I guess there's a high incidence of hepatitis B and hepatitis C in this area, and that contributes to a higher incidence of liver cancers. In fact, liver cancer is commonest cancer in this area, and the second most common cancer which I have seen and which also agrees with the databases, the cancers of the food pipe, that is the esophagus, and the cancer of the stomach.
Doctors from the Republic of India have been working in Mongolia since October 31st. During this period, in addition to providing professional advice to doctors, they have also been conducting examinations for citizens.
Please take a look at currency exchange rates provided by the Mongol Bank. Now here comes foreign news partnered with international news agencies. Boris Johnson's former top aide painted a picture of widespread chaos and dysfunction in the UK government during the coronavirus pandemic. Dominic Cumming has told UK COVID-19 pandemic inquiry that Johnson as a leader was distracted and indecisive during the country's biggest peacetime crisis.
In keenly awaited testimony to the country's public inquiry into the COVID-19 pandemic, Dominic Cummings was withering about many of the people dealing with the situation, including his former boss, describing a culture of toxic relations and lack of trust, but denied that he had broken any rules. In emails and WhatsApp messages that were handed to the inquiry and read out by the lead counsel, Cummings also slammed many in Johnson's cabinet and other top officials in expletive written terms. Cummings was the Prime Minister's chief advisor during the first months of the pandemic in 2020 and at the heart of the UK's response. Deputy Director at the Institute for Government, Emma Norris, says Cummings' use of bad language to describe his colleagues reveals the issues he struggled with himself. Cummings was hired by Johnson after helping to mastermind the Victorious Leave campaign in Britain's 2016 European Union membership referendum and was often described as Boris' brain. He told the inquiry that Johnson, who was hospitalized for several days with the virus in April 2020, lacked focus and discipline, constantly changing his mind during the pandemic, which made it difficult to set policy. During his testimony, he also took a swipe at many of the formal structures of the government during the pandemic and how a lack of a planning hobbled the immediate response to the virus after it first emerged in China in late 2019. The UK has one of the highest COVID-19 death tolls in Europe, with the virus recorded as a cause of death for around 230,000 people. Johnson, who was forced to step down as a prime minister in September 2022, following revelations of rule-breaking parties at his Downing Street residence during the pandemic, is due to address the inquiry before Christmas. Current Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is also expected to give evidence this year, as he was Johnson's Treasury chief during the pandemic.
The House approved a nearly $14.5 billion military aid package Thursday for Israel, a muscular U.S. response to the war with Hamas, but also a partisan approach by new Speaker Mike Johnson that poses a direct challenge to Democrats and President Joe Biden.
Gentlelady from Texas.
In a departure from norms, Johnson's package required that the emergency aid be offset with cuts in government spending elsewhere. That tack established the new House GOP's conservative leadership, but it also turned what would typically be a bipartisan vote into one dividing Democrats and Republicans. Biden has said he would veto the bill, which was approved 226 to 196, with 12 Democrats joining most Republicans on a largely party-line vote. Johnson said the Republican package would provide Israel with the assistance needed to defend itself, free hostages held by Hamas, and eradicate the militant Palestinian group, accomplishing all of this while we also work to ensure responsible spending and reduce the size of the federal government. Democrats said that approach would only delay help for Israel. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has warned that the stunningly unserious bill has no chances in the Senate. The first substantial legislative effort in Congress to support Israel in the war falls short of Biden's request for nearly $106 billion that would also back Ukraine as it fights Russia, along with U.S. efforts to counter China and address security at the border with Mexico. It is also Johnson's first big test as House Speaker as the Republican majority tries to get back to work after the month of turmoil since ousting Republican Kevin McCarthy. As Speaker Johnson has said, he will turn next to aid for Ukraine along with U.S. border security, preferring to address Biden's request separately as GOP lawmakers increasingly oppose aid in Kiev. The White House's veto warning said Johnson's approach fails to meet the urgency of the moment and would set a dangerous precedent by requiring emergency funds to come from cuts elsewhere. While the amount for Israel in the House bill is similar to what Biden sought, the White House said that the Republican plan's failure to include humanitarian assistance for Gaza is a grave mistake as the crisis deepens. To pay for the bill, House Republicans have attached provisions that would cut billions from the IRS that Democrats approved last year and Biden signed into law as a way to go after tax cheats. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office says doing that would end up costing the federal government a net $12 billion because of lost revenue from tax collections. Republicans scoffed at the assessment, but the Independent Budget Office is historically seen as a trusted referee. In the Democratic-controlled Senate, Schumer made clear that the House bill would be rejected. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell of Kentucky is balancing the need to support his GOP allies in the House while also fighting to keep the aid package more in line with Biden's broader request, believing all the issues are linked and demand U.S. attention. McConnell said the aid for Ukraine was not charity but was necessary to bolster a Western ally against Russia.
FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried's spectacular rise and fall in the cryptocurrency industry, a journey that included his testimony before Congress, a Super Bowl advertisement, and dreams of a future run for president, hit a new bottom Thursday when a New York jury convicted him of fraud in a scheme that cheated customers and investors of at least $10 billion.
After the month-long trial, jurors rejected Bankman-Fried's claim during 4 days on the witness stand in Manhattan Federal Court that he never committed fraud or meant to cheat customers before FTX, once the world's second-largest crypto exchange, collapsed into bankruptcy a year ago. His crimes caught up to him. His crimes have been exposed. Assistant U.S. Attorney Danielle Sassoon told the jury of the one-time billionaire just before they were read the law by Judge Lewis A. Kaplan and began deliberations. Sassoon said Bankman-Fried turned his customer's account into his personal piggy bank as up to $14 billion disappeared. She urged jurors to reject Bankman-Fried's insistence when he testified over 3 days that he never committed fraud or plotted to steal from customers, investors, and lenders, and didn't realize his companies were at least $10 billion in debt until October 2022. Bankman-Fried was required to stand and face the jury as guilty verdicts on all 7 counts were read. He kept his hands clasped tightly in front of him. When he sat down after the reading, he kept his head tilted down for several minutes. After the judge set a sentencing date of March 28, Bankman-Fried's parents moved to the front row behind him. His father put his arm around his wife as Bankman-Fried was led out of the courtroom. He looked back and nodded toward his mother, who nodded back and then became emotional, wiping her hand across her face after he left the room.
Please take a look at weather forecasts for the world's major cities. Well, thank you for staying tuned. We'll see you next time with more news and updates. Have a good day.